Welcome back everybody! As you can tell by my coat and the title and the thumbnail, we're going to be doing my top 5 5th Doctor stories video. Yay! For those of you who are unfamiliar, this is a series where I go through every Doctor, one Doctor per video, and I count off my 5 favourite stories for that Doctor, as well as some honourable mentions towards the end of the video. So, for the 5th Doctor, the first story I'm going to put into my top 5 is Earthshock. This, of course, being one of the most famous of the 5th Doctor's episodes. Lots of love in this one, from the atmospheric way a lot of the scenes are played out, the plot in general. Granted, the actual plot of this story is probably not the strongest in all of Doctor Who, but it's still a pretty good one. The surprise return of the Cybermen at the time, because they've been off screen since like 1975 at this point, and this story is from 1982, so quite the hiatus for those silver bastards. There's a really good sense of rising tension in this story as well. It all culminates in the death of Adric at the end. The defeat of the Cybermen does come at the cost of the life of one of the companions, which is quite a rare thing to have happen in Classic Who. Only 3 companions have officially died, canonically. 4 depending on how you count Perry, which makes it all the more impactful when it does happen. Love him or hate him, Adric's death is impactful. I deny anyone to say that Adric's death wasn't impactful in some way. The story is a lot more than just Cybermen! Oh no, the bratty teenager died. It's definitely a lot more than that though, and I'd recommend you go and watch it. Second up on the list, I'm going to put Enlightenment from towards the end of Season 20. Season 20, I think, is a bit of a weird one for Peter Davison's era. I don't know, generally speaking, the seasons themselves tend to be kind of weak, in my opinion, overall. But as a dichotomy to this, there's a lot of really good stories across all 3 of these seasons. And I don't really know how that works, how you can have like a lot of good stories spread out across this 3-year tenure, but then the seasons overall kind of feel a bit weak. I don't really know how to explain that. And I think personally for Season 20, I don't know what it is about this. I've never really gotten into Season 20 as a whole, to be honest. I think the problem with it is, half of it in the middle, a whole chunk of it is made up of this Black Guardian trilogy, and I don't tend to watch stories that are interconnected that much on a casual basis as much as I do the individual ones, so maybe I just haven't rewatched much of Season 20 overall. I don't know, Season 20 is generally kind of hit or miss in a way, I think, but I think Enlightenment is definitely the strongest out of the entire run of stories that year. The funny thing about Enlightenment is it comes at the end of the Black Guardian trilogy and just before the King's Demons. And then you have something like Enlightenment, which is like in a whole other league. It's a very high concept kind of story. It's kind of like the 5th Doctor's equivalent of Warrior's Gate from Tom Baker's era in a way. The whole space race with these immortal, godlike beings. But yeah, just pick out any other story from this era and compare it to Enlightenment, and I guarantee you Enlightenment has at least 3 times as many intricate layers to its storytelling compared to any other story of this era. And it's just bloody brilliant. Also, Linda Barron plays basically the main villain, unless you count the Black Guardian. What's not to love? The production values in this one are surprisingly high for a Classic Who story. Like the production values on Enlightenment are at least a decade ahead of their time. It's like seeing 2001: A Space Odyssey and not knowing that it was made in the late 60s, and you think, this film could easily pass for a film made in the mid to late 90s. With Enlightenment, it's kind of the same thing. You could easily mistake this for being made in like the late 90s or something, like a full 15 years after it was actually made. And I think that's a good testament to how good the production values are in this story. Great story, go watch it. And number 3 now, we're going to go to The 5 Doctors. Well, technically not the Season 20 finale, it was the 20th anniversary story and it comes after Season 20, so I technically class this as the real finale to Season 20. Otherwise, we've got to accept the King's Demons being the Series 20 finale, and that story is pretty fucking forgettable. So let's do everybody a favour and give a round of applause to The 5 Doctors, which is the true Season 20 finale of Doctor Who. I'm probably gonna skip over a lot of this story, given how there's a lot in this one to talk about, and I don't think you really want to see me rambling on for 20 minutes with just one story when we've got 5 to get through in this video. But if you haven't watched The 5 Doctors for some bizarre reason, and you claim to be a Doctor Who fan, or at least claim to be a classic Doctor Who fan, then what the hell are you doing? Go and watch it. I personally prefer the 5 Doctors as an anniversary story and just as a story overall over the 3 Doctors. I know that may be an unpopular opinion, I'm not sure, it depends who you ask I suppose. While I like the 3 Doctors and I think that's a pretty good anniversary story, I think it's kind of more of your bog standard Doctor Who story just with some extra Doctors thrown in. Whereas the 5 Doctors is, okay, it is mostly fan service but not quite to the extent of Power of the Doctor, let's be honest here. It was basically the biggest bit of fan service in the entire classic run of this show, but there's also a good plot in there, so it balances it out nicely. You got the first 5 Doctors returning, technically, but I think they did the best they could with not having Tom Baker in there, and Richard Herndale does a fine job of playing the first Doctor. So those are fine, and then you have the joy of seeing Troughton and Pertwee teaming up again, which if you've seen the 3 Doctors, you'll know it's always hilarious when the 2nd and 3rd Doctors meet up. 5th Doctor's pretty good, as usual, and you got the roster of returning companions and the villains, and just everything about it is really good. But yeah, the 5 Doctors, the whole thing's just a joy from start to finish. Good plot if you want to get into that, and even better fan service, which, I mean, is an anniversary, pardon me, it's an anniversary special. It's an anniversary special so good it nearly made me burp and throw up in my own mouth. It's an anniversary special, so... Well, what do you expect? You'd be a fool to miss it. So I think number 4 now, we're going to move into season 21 with Resurrection of the Daleks. This is an interesting story for me. I never really liked this one originally when I saw it over a decade ago. It was always one that I thought, there's just something about this that I can't get into and I don't know why. Looking back on it now, over time, it's definitely grown on me. It's definitely not the strongest of all the Dalek stories out there, but I definitely think it's worthy of more credit than I initially gave it. There's some dodgy things in there, of course. I think, I don't mind it being a pretty grim and violent story with a surprisingly high death toll. I don't mind that personally. I know some people have levelled that as a criticism of the story, but I mean, like, come on you pansies. Learn what the word fun means, at least. The plot's probably a bit on the convoluted side, because Lord knows it takes a bit of mental gymnastics to figure out what the hell's actually going on in this story, considering there's about 8 different subplots that the Daleks are all involved in. You've got their plan to free Davros to cure them from the disease that the Movellans have developed against them, which sort of picks up from the end of Destiny of the Daleks. You got the Daleks' other plan to capture the Doctor and his companions and duplicate them as clones to then go and assassinate the Time Lords. You've got like 3 other subplots in this story as well, I don't even know. You got Davros's scheme to try and, I guess, recruit all the remaining Daleks to be loyal to him instead of the Supreme Dalek, which begins the whole Dalek civil war proper. There's a lot of stuff going on in this one, but it's all done really well, and I think that all makes up for it. Plus Tegan's exit at the end of this, I've always thought is kind of sad, you know. It's like, as a companion, I think Tegan went through a lot, and honestly I don't blame her for deciding that this story is what tips her over the edge and finally makes her think, you know, this shit is getting too depressing, I don't want to do it anymore, I'm out of here. I like that it tries to do some new and interesting things with the Daleks as well, starting off the Civil War story arc with them. It's probably the heaviest use in any single story of the Daleks using their duplicate clones as well. Kind of an interesting aspect that's not been touched upon with the Daleks all that much, except for like a couple stories here and there, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, all around, really good story, bit slower paced, bit more moody and atmospheric at times, but I think it's worth the watch. And lastly, number 5, this one was probably really obvious. Just as Genesis of the Daleks was going to be the most obvious pick for the 4th Doctor, the most obvious pick for the 5th Doctor is going to be his final story, The Kaiser Androzani. And just like Genesis of the Daleks, there's really nothing new to say about caves, other than just how good of a story it is, minus the rather crap-looking bat monster that shows up for some reason. And also that weird thing that Morgus does where he just looks at the camera and just spurts out his evil plans. Why does he do that? But beyond that, this is like the best story ever. I mean, there's a reason this is voted as the best Doctor Who story ever. But yeah, as far as regeneration stories go as well, this is up there as one of the best, if not the best. The 5th Doctor here is at his best and really embodies what the Doctor is about as well. Just the sheer amount of heroism in this version of the character in the story is off the charts. I like the unique thing about this story where, besides the Doctor and Perry, effectively everyone is a villain in some way. And besides the Doctor and Perry, basically everybody in this story fucking dies by the end, and it's grim and it's amazing. Why am I praising that? I don't know why. We need more stories where literally every character is dead by the end of it. Come on, BBC, you pansies. Plus, 2 out of the 3 cliffhangers in this are actually kind of spine-chilling, not gonna lie. The part 1 cliffhanger where they get executed, ugh, chills. The part 2 cliffhanger where it's just them being menaced by a rubber monster, not so great. Part 3 cliffhanger though, you all know the one I'm talking about, I'm sure, also chills. Brilliant. And yeah, that was my top 5 5th Doctor stories, and the honourable mentions I got for this time around were Kinder, The Visitation, Snake Dance, and the Big Finish audio spare parts. All brilliant. I could discuss them here, but I'm not going to, because this video is a bit long. So that was this week's video. Did you enjoy? Did you enjoy the video? Leave a like if you did. Did you agree with the video? Also leave a like if you did. If you didn't, also leave a like. Comment some of your favourite 5th Doctor stories down below. Put a list if you want, or just chuck out some random stories. I'll see you all in about a week for the next video, and until then, bye for now everybody.